if you like, you can grab a cup of coffee. When it comes to budget, there is a natural salivating and eye-popping curiosity to know who gets what, and then, of course, why. And their equity and balanced representation of the sharing formula. Let's take a look at your the 2025 50 trillion naira budget. I mean, Nigeria's 2025 50 trillion naira budget. I'm delighted to have Eze Onyekpere, Lead Director, Center for Social Justice. He joins me now on Prime Time. Glad to have you join me, Eze.
My pleasure.
Yeah. How would you, let's begin with the assessment of the parameters upon which the budget is hinged. Exchange rate of 1,005, 2.06 million barrels per day, oil benchmark of $75, projected growth rate of 4.8%.
Let me start by saying that you judge a projection from the history of that projection in terms of what has been going on and the trajectory of what the administration has been doing over the last 18 months. $1,500 to the USD, 1,500 naira to the USD looks a little bit realistic if the right decisions are taken. Over 2 million barrels crude oil a day, I do not know where that's coming from because I'm not convinced that today we are digging up to 1.7, 1.8. We are still floundering on the promises of the 2024 budget. We are not doing well on that.
Which has been extended by 6 months.
Yeah,
anyway.
which has been extended, which shows you also that they did not do their homework. So if you have extended 2024 budget, capital budget anyway, because they've been paying salaries and drawing down overheads by 6 months, that means you use 6 months to finish 2024. So at what time are you going to begin 2025? I had expected that the natural trajectory was to say, as at December, this is the part of the 2024 budget that has not been finished. We don't need to extend 2024 budget. We should have carried them over as the opening balance of the 2025 budget. And whatever is remaining should come from priorities that should come in 2025. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, follow.
Instead of saying extend. Because what they're doing, with utmost respect to the National Assembly, most Nigerians are not discerning enough to read between the lines, including very senior lawyers who argue because they are mercantilists in their approach. The Financial Year Act describes the Nigerian financial year as a period between 1st January and 31st December.
Which
is also reaffirmed in the constitutional definition of the financial year. Yet the Constitution gives the National Assembly the power to redefine the financial year. Now, what does that power mean? It is not the power to extend a financial year. It is the power to say the Nigerian financial year is January to December. In view of all the circumstances, the challenges we are facing, we are redefining it from June to the end of May. It begins in June every year, ends May 31st, the next year. It's not a power to say extend the budget to 31st March. Then the next year, say extend it to June 30th of the next year. The next one, you say extend it to 30th September. That is caprice and arbitrariness and whimsical attitudes.
What you're saying in effect?
What the National Assembly, what the Senate did, which I heard they did, was unconstitutional. It was illegal. But even though they have very senior lawyers there, they don't want to acknowledge that. If you ask an average senior advocate, he will simply tell you what doesn't make sense. Okay, so what I'm saying in essence is that the trajectory of even these fundamentals of the budget doesn't give hope, because you judge the hope you get from past performance since the actors on the scene have not changed.
Do you think that it's possible because of the increase in petroleum pump price? You know, that's why he's looking at 2.06 million barrels per day. We'll come to the benchmark. I mean, because NASS, the Nigerian Economic Society, is saying that might be too, if shock comes, that they should reverse it to 70. So if there's a shock, maybe they can take it up.
Yeah, we see, the problem with us is that we don't obey the laws we've made. Due process of law and legalism shows up the budget if you follow it. We have a Fiscal Responsibility Act, which set up the excess crude account, and which says, be conservative. The general philosophy and trust is, be conservative in your projections of the crude oil price. It could be influenced by geopolitical events. It could spike up to 100. Something could also possible, it falls below 50. Now, budget in the most conservative manner. If you have more than you budgeted, save it somewhere. Thereafter, disburse it. It didn't say don't spend your money. Save if it goes beyond, to make sure that
which
you have a rainy
advantage.
Yeah, you have a rainy day account, because if you now say it's supposed to be 70 and it turns out to be 50, your budget is totally disrupted. So just say 50 and get 70. You have 20 extra. Then you come back and plan how you use that 20. But that is not happening. We are always over-optimistic in our projections. And that over-optimism is what has been happening and leading us to the challenges we are having in the budget. And you know why I spoke to you earlier that we don't need to talk about the granular pictures of this 2025 budget. We have to look at the big picture. And that big picture has to derive from past experience. Okay? When you look at it, for instance, this budget talks about 15% inflation rate.
I was going to come to that. I was going to come to...
Every realistic man, you don't need to be an economist. You don't need to be a statistician. You don't need to be an arise analyst or a lawyer to know that that does not make sense. You cannot be heading on your way to Jericho, and each time they ask you, where are you going, you say you are going to Jerusalem. It doesn't make sense.
Do you think they probably have something?
There's nothing they have. Today, inflation rate is over 34%.
34.6%, basically.
Now, look at the picture that is happening. There are tax bills before the National Assembly. You are proposing to increase VAT from 7.5 to 10%, and thereafter to 12.5, and thereafter to 15.
I think so.
What does that mean? VAT is a regressive tax. And what it means is that there will be a general price increase across board from 7.5 to 10%. And if there is a price increase at a time the purchasing power of the average Nigerian is reduced, what will happen? Of course, more poverty, more people will fall into poverty, and then that will be something that will increase inflation. Secondly, you want to reduce inflation, and you are increasing the deficit. The deficit of 13 trillion.
You're running ahead.
Sorry, sir.
Because
this is what I've lived my life over the last 20 something years.
Okay.
Analyzing budgets, the budget philosophy, the laws, the policies, and everything.
We're going to come to...
so in essence, you can't hit 15%. It will likely increase. If it reduces beyond 34, it may not go beyond 29, 30.
So you think this is overambitious?
No, it's not overambitious. It's not based on empirical evidence. Call it its name. It's not about overambitious. It is not based on evidence. It is simply whimsical.
All right, let's begin to look at the sectors. Defense and security, 4.91 million to provide the military with modern weapons. We still have insecurity in the land. There are new entrants into the picture, like Karua and all that. What do you make of this figure? And of course, we'll get to agriculture, but farmers also have the problem of not being able to...
The figures about allocation to the sectors, particularly security, is not the challenge. I keep talking about the big picture. What is the big picture? The big picture in security is not about the resources dedicated to security.
Okay.
It is about the political will to fight the insurgency. And that political will, once it's lacking, even if you were to dedicate the entire 47 or 50 trillion to insecurity, it will continue.
So it's not a question of the money allocated.
It's not about
but it's
the
a question of the people running the system.
Yes, the political will and commonsensical approaches. You know, in this part of the world, we are used to people calling themselves experts and trying to speak highfalutin to bamboozle others. Now, look at what has happened over the years in our security. All they need is common sense. A couple of months ago, somebody lost some APCs, armored personnel carriers or something like that. They said it was trapped in mud or sand. And they knew that these insurgents were going to come to make a video and make nonsense out of it. Even that alone, from my mind, as a non-security expert, was a trap set for them. All you could do was to watch them from a reasonable distance, from where you could set the bombs and the mortars and bomb the hell out of them, or set the aircrafts on air and decimate them. You still allowed and watched them make a video denigrating Nigeria, rubbishing everybody, setting it on fire, and you call yourself a security or security expert. And you want me to believe you? That's incredible. That's bullshit. Just like what happened during the Chibok girls. We're asking, how did you move 200, 300 girls in a vehicle, not a Peugeot 504, not a Camry, a trailer or truck that keeps moving slowly, and nothing happened.
So political will not...
So I'm not interested in these figures. I'm not impressed,
but
either whether it is big or small, to the extent that the political will is not there. Even if you were to give them 50 trillion, nothing will happen.
Okay, let's look at another sector. If you were to give them 50, well, let's, you think so? You really think, well, from your angle, you're saying it's political will to deal with the issues concerned, and common sense.
Common sense.
Not just
that is the problem with Nigeria, is that we are lacking commonsensical approaches.
To issues.
I don't want to believe. In fact, these days, when I see people who call themselves experts, I dismiss them. Because the bulk of what we lack in Nigeria is common sense.
Is that not generalization when you dismiss them? Because you still have experts.
I do.
Well, by the way, health gets 2.48 million. Before we talk, yeah, okay, let's just talk about
which is still under 5% of the budget.
Yes, I mean, let me just break it down. Health gets 2.48 trillion. 402 billion of this will go to infrastructure, health infrastructure. 2.65 billion to basic health care needs. But Abuja declaration...
Care provision fund.
Provision, yes. But Abuja declaration says 15%. It has never been reached. I mean, this has not been touched.
Back to the issues.
And last year, even before you come in, from analysis, last year, even though the figure is bigger, but this year is actually lower, because last year was 5.48% of the total budget, but this year is 5.18%.
The issue, again, is not about the Abuja declaration 15%. The issue is not just more money for health, more value from money from the already allocated resources. In the past, we've had the Minister of Health returning capital projects to the Treasury. They couldn't even take up the capital projects, implement them fully, and draw down their money when other ministries were doing that. In the past, we've had money from Global Fund, which we couldn't utilize. And all this we have done.
Or did we utilize?
We didn't utilize fully, and some of it were even stolen. And some of them we drew down. We have drugs meant for the poorest of the poor lying down in Abuja.
So what would we have?
Instead of being distributed to the regional capitals, the six geopolitical zones, for instance, in the southeast, they were supposed to have that big store in Enugu. So some drug stays in Abuja and expired. Some that went to Enugu were not distributed to the 5 states there. Even when they distributed from the state capital, they couldn't take it down to the local government. From the local government, you couldn't take it down from the health facility. I don't discuss money again in most issues. I am discussing the human failure. Most of the challenges we have in Nigeria are human failures.
Not just money.
Not just money. Yes, money could play a role, but once you get the human capacity intact,
the right human capacity.
Yes. Once you get it intact, then monetary issues will become secondary, to the extent that you put 2.5 trillion and you get value of 2.5 trillion. And then you can now say we need extra 1 trillion. And when you say that, it means that if you are giving that 1 trillion, you will deliver on maternal and child health, you deliver on malaria, you deliver on other communicable diseases, and you bring down the disease burden. But there is nothing happening that shows empirical evidence. Why I'm talking to you this way is that for almost 20 years I've been analyzing budgets. And each time I see more allocations, I want to see the impact. I have seen nothing. But it's an opportunity, a job for the boys, for people to simply come and share money and get away.
Do you see the historical fiscal gaps continuing with a deficit of about 15 million. I mean, let's talk about
13 trillion.
No, it's 15 now because it's actually 49.7, not 47.9.
No, I think it's 13.
15.
The deficit, then debt service is about 15, 16. If I'm right.
Yeah, debt service, sorry. Debt service
now,
is 15.8.
What does that tell you? When Jonathan left Nigeria as president, the entire debt was about 12.8 trillion. Today, we want to incur a deficit of 13 trillion. And service debts, not payback, service existing debts with over 15 to 16 trillion. What does that tell you? We are people in a hole. And we are shouting to the whole world we want to come out. But we have a shovel in that hole where we are in that bottom pit. And we are digging more. Does that tell you we want to come out? Can you for once sit back and try to reminiscence over what has happened? A couple of 2-3 years ago, the heat was on fuel subsidy across all political parties when they were running. Remove it. Oh, we'll raise money to take care of education, health, infrastructure. That was the song. Tinubu came on board. On the first day, he announced his removal. 1.5 to 2 years into
and that has caused social upheaval.
1.5 to 2 years into that removal, where has the Tinubu administration invested the money? The much maligned Gogol General Abacha removed a few pennies. He didn't remove everything. And he set up ETF. And former President Buhari managed it. Yes, we were critical, but something happened. At least we could see the funds. The much maligned President Jonathan, who was just out of power, set up, removed a few pennies also, 10, 15 naira thereabout, after all the crisis. He set up Shopee. We saw interventions in maternal and child health. He gave buses to labor, because these are the people who fight him and go on strike.
Yeah, but the president
has talked about... Come and collect 100 buses. Where have we invested 1 kobo? If you say CNG initiative, no money has been invested there.
Well, he talked about CNG buses.
No, nobody. Where are they? Have you seen one? Have you entered one?
Well, 30 was provided.
I saw labor buses under Jonathan. I have not seen any CNG buses beyond the media razzmatazz and launchings. I have not seen one. All the staff in my office, I'm an executive director leading an NGO, I have not seen one. They've not entered one. We're still complaining.
Let's talk about briefly. In 2023, government generated 12.5 trillion.
In the first
2024 years, yeah. They added 2 million to it to reach 14.5. Yeah. Now, what do you make of the 34.82 projected revenue, as against, of course, the deficit?
If by the time they increase VAT, put 5% telecom levies, all these things they have in the tax bills, and press the people down for that. Because
I was going to ask you, what will that do then, the social implications?
The implications is that there will be more poverty. I saw a rather distinguished analyst on one television, not here yesterday, singing the Hallelujah song for 2025.
I don't understand what you mean by this.
He was singing, the Hallelujah song is a victory song of how things will be getting better. And I told myself that this guy is a false prophet. Very respected man. He's a false prophet, and I will dare anybody. If you were to bring him here or you here, I will dare you for 100,000 bit or 1 million, and I will call Boenga to accept the money. And if it turns out you win, I will give you. I will bring my money and keep it here. But I know things are going to get worse because there is a logical sequence of things. You are not increasing resources available to me. You are increasing my tax. You are doing a lot of funny things that will reduce my disposable income. And somebody is telling me it's going to get better.
All right.
Please tell that to the Marines.
Tell that to the Marines. Thank you so much. Onyekpere, the Executive Director, Center for Social Justice, for being on the program.
My pleasure.
All right. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.